And I said, come over, just come on over, you'll say.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Town of Portland Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and we are live here in the Town Tech Educational Podcast Studio at Portland High School. And I believe this is going to be our episode number 18. And with us in the studio is our first select woman, Miss Susan Bransfield, on the line again, back newly refreshed from his vacation, and is our Chatham Health Director, Mr. Russ Melmud, and also on the line is our Public Works Director, Mr. Bob Shea. So I'm going to kick it off with Susan. It's all you, and we'll get things going. And I know Russ has some commitments going. So
all right. Thank you, David. Good to be here once again. I just want to say a big, big thank you. A thank you to all of our residents, number one, as well as to our Public Works Department, our grounds division, our technology division, and all of our town employees in helping us get back on our feet after that terrible storm that we had last week. And I also want to thank our Eversource liaisons. Patrick Smith and Patricia Bands have just been phenomenal in working with us. The difficulty, as I know our residents know, has been the communications and some of the difficulty with the restoration process. We're going to let the folks that are looking at that data determine what went wrong, what can go better next time, because I'll tell you, Dave, there will be another next time.
Oh, I'm sure.
We've lived through these storms, and we know they're going to happen. We're going to lose power. We, as a town, I feel very confident in saying we were well prepared. I think our Public Works Department, our emergency management, as well as police, fire, and all the other folks really were ready for this storm. The difficulty was, of course, the loss of power and the ability to return that in a efficient manner. So that's something we're going to be working on. But again, I can't thank everyone enough. They've been working so hard. And I know that our health department also helped us in terms of the safety of food and how important that was. And I want to thank Ryan from the Chatham Health District that came on our show last time, Dave, and talked about the importance of throwing away food when it is not good anymore, when it is lost in refrigeration or whatever other reason the perishable food is no longer good. So, you know, if anyone has any questions on that, feel free to reach out to Chatham Health. Maybe, Russ, you can talk about that just a bit. But I'm going to keep my comments brief this week, Dave. I can't thank everybody enough. It's just been, I'm so proud of our residents and so proud of our employees, because the key is we work together.
That's the thing. It's a team effort, and to go from there, and especially this past week with these extremely high heat indexes, it's unbelievable. Everybody's working under very stressful conditions. So anyway, thank you.
You're right, Dave. Thank you.
Anyway, back from his vacation, Russ, I hope you got to eat some lobster while you're up there.
Absolutely, Dave. Of course, day one. Day one.
There
we were eating lobster.
There you go. And before I forget, please extend our thanks to Ryan, who jumped on the podcast last week and last minute to give us a very, very timely update, as far as on food safety and so forth. So that was much appreciated, and appreciate his time and effort, and extend our thanks to him. But anyway,
I certainly will.
So tell us what's happening in the district.
Sure. So I'll just continue on the theme of the tropical storm Isaias, which knocked out power. We, in the aftermath of the storm, visited all the food service establishments, restaurants in Portland to make sure that those without power, and in particular without power to their refrigeration units, were discarding the food that was out of temperature. Anytime, I think Ryan mentioned this last week, anytime food that's supposed to be cold rises above 41 degrees, you can do that for about 4 hours before harmful bacteria that can make people sick the growth starts to accelerate. So any food that was out of temperature, if a restaurant was without power, we just made sure they were throwing that food away. And despite the the loss of business that represents, there was widespread compliance. We didn't have any problems. Most of the time when we were entering these establishments, they were already in the process of discarding food and documenting all that. And so, people can feel confident going back to restaurants that, they're not getting food that was in a refrigeration unit that was at 85 degrees for 4 days. They can feel confident that the food is safe because it's all been discarded if it was at a temperature. So that's good news. And for people who are just getting their water back on, they may notice some increased turbidity in the water, and that's normal after a power outage when water is sat in their lines. Doesn't mean the water is dangerous, but we still recommend that people flush their lines until that color disappears or goes away a little bit. And that's just so you don't get all that sediment. It can make your stomach upset. Doesn't mean it's dangerous. It just can make your stomach a little bit upset. A lot of iron and things in the water sometimes. So, but I'm glad we're on the back end of that, and hopefully we don't see another storm like that for a while. Even though we're seeing more storms lately, and this year is supposed to be an active storm season, and it is 2020. So maybe just before the turn of the year, we'll get a major ice storm, and it'll bring down all the dead trees, just like this storm brought down all the trees with leaves. I don't want to jinx us, but again, it's 2020. So we're preparing for that eventuality.
Right.
Crossing our fingers it doesn't happen, but preparing nonetheless.
Sure.
On the COVID front, things are still going very, very well. We are not seeing community transmission in the town of Portland or anywhere else in Chatham Health District. The last time we had a confirmed positive case, that person became ill and was sampled the last week of July. So in August, we haven't had any positive cases yet. That doesn't mean we're not going to. We will, but we haven't had many. And then that's good news. Our test positivity rate in the town of Portland is below 1% in August. Just a little history. The peak of the pandemic, March and April. March, we were at 26% of the tests were positive. April, 36% were positive. May, it was down to 6%. June, 2%. July, 1%. And now in August to date, we're below 1% of the tests are positive. So all really, really good news on the COVID front. I will say one thing, and I'll emphasize this every time I'm on. If we think back to where we were in March and April, we got here through trial by fire. We made a lot of mistakes. Unfortunately, Connecticut and Portland, we were hit early in the pandemic. We didn't have a lot of experiences to draw from except for some other countries in Europe and China and a few outbreaks that we had seen in California, Oregon, and Washington before we were hit very hard. So we made a lot of mistakes, and I think anybody who's lived long enough knows that, you might learn more from your mistakes than your successes. Let's not forget the lessons we learned from March and April. Everybody needs to continue to wear their mask, wash their hands, avoid crowds, stay home when you're sick, get tested if you're feeling ill or if you've been around somebody who you know who's had COVID-19. Answer the phone if you see a Connecticut number that you don't recognize. It could be somebody doing contact tracing if you've recently tested positive for COVID-19, or to let you know that you were around somebody with COVID-19. Contact tracing right now, because we have so few cases, is really an important tool to keep us there. This is how we can sort of continue with our relatively adjusted but normal lives of doing things, going to work and going out to eat and maybe even seeing some shows outside, because we're testing, we're finding the few positive cases, we're identifying those people's contacts, and we're making those calls to those people. So please answer the phone if you see a phone number you might not be familiar with. It's from Connecticut. It could be a contact tracer to let you know that you were around somebody who was sick with COVID-19 and you need to quarantine. So we're in a really good place. I'm really encouraged. If there are any storm clouds on the horizon that I'm concerned about, I think I've mentioned this before, the demands for testing elsewhere in the country do impact Connecticut. So when there are surges in COVID-19 in places like Texas, Georgia, Florida, that may impact our turnaround times here. So whereas we might have been able to get a test result from sample collection date to result in, between 1 and 3 days in the past, it's a little bit longer now, 4 or 5 days. Some people are getting results a week or longer from now. So I am concerned about that. I hope that eases back as some of the rest of the country implements some of these control measures. So we get the pandemic in control in those other places, maybe we'll see testing turnaround times improve here. And the other thing I'm a little bit concerned about is colleges. So we do have a bunch of colleges in Connecticut, and people attend college in Connecticut from all over the world and all over the country. We have a couple colleges right across the river in Middletown where, they attract a lot of people from out of state and a lot of people from out of the country, frankly. And Portland has a lot of close social and economic ties with Middletown. So I'm a little bit concerned about, that age group who, we are seeing numbers, not only in Connecticut, but elsewhere in the country, numbers for college-age adults increasing faster than in any other age group for COVID-19. And yes, people in that age group suffer consequences, the severe consequences from COVID-19 much less frequently than older adults. That's true. But they are perfectly effective efficient at transmitting the virus to others. So I am a little bit concerned about, our colleges opening and people coming in from all over the place and perhaps coming in with infection. So if there are any parents of college-age adults going back to college or housing college students who are going back to college locally, I encourage you to please tell your students, be careful, wear a mask, don't go to parties. I know that's, Scrooge-like of me to say, and, students aren't going to want to hear that, but please, avoid crowds, avoid parties, wear a mask, focus on your studies. I know nobody wants to have a crippled social atmosphere at college when college is supposed to be one of those freewheeling times that everybody experiences social growth and some other things. We really need to clamp down on that. This is not going to be a normal college year for many people. So we don't want to trigger community transmission in Portland or anywhere else. We don't want to bring those infections, mild as they might be for some students, back home and back to places where people are more vulnerable to COVID-19. So I'm a little concerned, and that's the message. Please avoid crowds, avoid parties, wear a mask if you're a college student and anybody else. Otherwise, I think we're in really good shape, and I'm hoping that that continues. Again, what we know about COVID is it's not flu, so there's no reason to suspect that it's seasonal. And we could have a resurgence at any time when people begin to behave in ways that are riskier in terms of transmission. It can happen at any time. So please be safe, be careful out there, continue to follow all the recommendations. And we'll get through this, and we'll continue with, what has been in Connecticut for a month now or so, 2 months even, a relatively normal social existence.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's, the definition of normal is a moving target, it seems, all the time now, as far as that goes. And I know the next big thing on the horizon, and I know a lot of the school districts obviously are struggling with determining their opening policies, is the opening of a school. I know Portland had their Board of Education meeting Tuesday night, and I think you sat in on part of that, Russ. And obviously Portland has opted to open in the hybrid mode, and I don't know what other schools in the district are doing, but I think
many are leaning towards or have already announced that they're going with hybrid. I know Colchester, I believe East Hampton, maybe one other has already announced they're going hybrid. Hybrid is perhaps the most controversial of all the approaches, and that's because it has, yes, it deconcentrates schools, which everybody agrees is a good idea for COVID prevention, but it doesn't provide the sort of stable care for children every day that would allow parents to, go back to work, every day if that's what they need to do.
Right.
There's also been some concerns expressed about alternate or ad hoc childcare setups or learning pods cropping up on those days where students have to be out of school and parents have to be in work. I don't share those concerns. I think that people's social circles and are fairly set, and if they do engage in those kinds of settings, they will be with people who students and children have already been socially engaged with. So I don't see it being a particularly high risk of having multiple contacts outside of school, and I see the school setting when you have a full school, when it's mixing classes, if that's what you have to do, especially in high schools, and potentially crowded hallways and buses. I see that as a much higher risk environment for clusters of cases. So I do agree with the approach to start with a hybrid and to see how it goes. In particular, again, going back to colleges reopening, to see if there's an impact in communities from colleges reopening.
Yeah.
So I think it's a prudent approach, and I know some schools are saying we're going to start with hybrid, and we'll go for a month or so, and we'll reevaluate. And I just think that's a cautious and sound approach. But I do acknowledge that there are potential risks, and there are a lot of unknowns. But, the reopening committees of schools, superintendents, public health departments who participated in those like ours have been working for 2 months, meeting regularly and wrestling with some very difficult choices. And it's hard work, and nobody's saying that it's definitely going to be the right choice or it's definitely going to be the wrong choice. I think we'll wait and see, but I think it's the best approach right now, given the situation and the unknowns.
Yeah, exactly. I think, the benchmark is just trying to get through that Columbus Day holiday and kind of evaluate where we are, and then, if we have to make adjustments, go from there.
Yes.
Yeah, go from there. Yeah, and I think Charles is going to be coming on the early part of the week on his podcast, and I think we're going to be addressing a lot more of the nuts and bolts and the specifics of the plan as far as in relation. I know there was a fair amount of discussion and a fair amount of questions, from the public as far as that goes. And the other thing too is from a standpoint of fall sports. I think on the news this morning, the CIAC is opting to at least start with some small fall sports, and that's yet to be determined. But I think Charles is going to go over that on his podcast.
Yeah, sports. There's a range of risk involved, and depending on the sport you're talking about. Some are, by their nature, spaced out or small groups, and then there are others where they're large, crowded groups, and you're face to face with, an opponent from another team.
Sure.
Think about wrestling. There's
Yeah.
nothing more close an interaction than wrestling. And so they're high risk, and I know CIAC has been looking at mitigating that risk and what can be done, and difficult decisions. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the plans, and again, with low transmission rates right now, I'd be surprised if anybody, for example, walked into a school on day one or showed up at a practice for a sport with COVID-19 and didn't know it.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth of it right now. So I think we're in good shape, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can get this done as safely as possible.
Great. All right. Russ, thanks so much. I appreciate the time. I know you guys are, running around out there and distributing PPE and so forth, so I appreciate it. So,
Yep.
and again, my thanks to Ryan for last week to jumping on. Did an awesome job.
I'll let him know. Thanks for that.
Great. All right. Mr. Russ Melman from the Chatham Health District. So anyway, that's great. Also with us, we're going to turn, as Russ jumps off, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Bob Shea, our Public Works Director and our Fire Chief. So, Bob, welcome. Thanks for taking time and calling in.
Yeah, well, here we are again, Dave. Thank you, and good morning to Susan. So, although a very short duration storm, a very, very devastating one as far as we're concerned here at DPW, we have a task, a very, very large task ahead of us, but we are already engaged. Right now, all our roads are open. With all the help that we've had, the guys have basically been around the clock and till just the other day where they're actually, cutting out early in the evening so they can get some well-deserved sleep and be back early by 6 a.m. each morning to continue their efforts on making our roads safe and begin the pickup of debris. There's an awful lot of debris. It'll be out there for a long time. Our main concern right now is to get the debris that we can, that are sightline issues and issues that are going to hamper our ability to, make some improvements that we have planned. Most specifically, our chip sealing roads that we need to get done over the next few weeks. Unfortunately, it looks like we might be sliding into school time, but without any issues with buses, we will make sure that doesn't hamper any ability for the buses to be able to traverse safely down those roads that we may be chip sealing when school starts. We just, unfortunately, this is a snowball effect for us. We would be done and chip sealed would be completed, but this is not only are vendors not available now, but we don't have roads that are clear enough and clean enough and prepped where they need to be to do this type of work. It started with COVID. That pushed us out probably a month and a half, if not longer, with available materials, and then this just threw another punch right into the mix. So like Russ said, it's 2020. We just need to get through this year and do it as safely and the best we can. So with that said, brush, we're picking it up. Don't worry. It needs to be out at the curb by Monday. And if we've gone by your home, that's only because we're picking up in the area because we can. Don't worry if you haven't had a chance to get it out and it's brought out by Monday, we will certainly return and get that from you. So don't worry. But we need to stay active as we can because there's going to be a lull, and we're going to have a much smaller team doing that cleanup because I need to force my efforts on some paving projects to get prepped for chip seal. So next week we're going to have to hit the roads running with our paving box and do some shimming and some repair work before we get our chip seal down so that our road is properly established under that process. Brush pickup. It will continue, but most importantly, we've been bringing brush in free, and really with not the need for permitting because there's so many people helping residents do their removal because they certainly don't have trucks and trailers. So we've been bringing brush in since the storm ended. We have to pull back, and our whole operation down there has to become more compliant and more normal based on our permitting. And based on our limited manpower, we need to get the scale open as well so that people can start bringing in their bulky waste that's been stored and contractors are able to continue doing the work that they need to do. So Wednesday will be the last day for brush just to come in free. On Thursday, we will start to bring it back over the scale and begin that small fee that we have. If you can't, do that, we are doing curbside as well, so you can certainly take advantage of that. But I hope that people will take full advantage of bringing their brush there while they have time, taking advantage of that no ask, no tell, a free service that we have. That pile down there is growing by the day. It's enormous already. Thank goodness we were able to chip the enormous pile that was there 5 days before the storm because I don't think we'd have an area anywhere in town to be able to store this brush. So that was one lucky opportunity that we had or that had happened. So Thursday will be back to normal and you'll be going over the scale with your brush. So that's important. We'll get that notice out, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that. We'll be selling bags and permits because we'll have staff there to be able to do that. We certainly can't do everything. We have to man that brush pile 24, it's just we're there the minute we open until the minute we close because there's so much coming in. We have to move it with the machine. So Matt and Roger have been working down there nonstop in the machines. Some of the stuff, because we were out of power, we're all back. Our compactors for garbage are back online, so that is all normal. We just need to get our bulky waste back, and we've been doing a little bit of that as we go. So we will be back. So the 20th is back on the scale. Okay, High Street reclaim project, hopefully in September. Sometime that got pushed off as well. All the departments have been just working nonstop. Susan's fully aware of that. We had so many generator issues or so many issues that required generators from our water system to our sewer system. Our employees were checking our generators around the clock every 3 hours since Tuesday. Up every 3 hours, their alarm would go off, they'd go check the site, make sure the generator's running, make sure it had fuel, make sure we weren't overheating, make sure our sewage was being pumped, make sure our water was being chlorinated. So we're finally back online. As of last night at 8 o'clock was the last critical infrastructure area that was repaired, which was a significant job down at our Co-Avenue pump station on Middlesex Avenue Extension. So now I think last night was the first night that the alarms didn't go off 3 or 4 times after they got home from work that they had a report. So I thank everybody for all my guys for their hard work and in this, especially in the heat. They're still out every day on the streets doing their job. No complaints, never get a complaint. They just go to work. So Thanks for the residents for their patience. That's most important. And thank you for thanking them. That goes a long way. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Bob. And anything new on the EMS side or the bridge? I know the bridge has been moving right along. So
yeah, we had a problem with a wire that was down on one of the entrances to the bridge. The entrance to the bridge from Lower Main Street to go south. That was down for over a week. That caused a lot of confusion. We worked very hard to get that service line off the road, and they finally did that. So that was a little difficult. That's a tough spot, especially when it's under construction and it's reduced to one lane. Then we can't get off or on the bridge on the other side. So that was difficult. But we've gotten past that. The bridge is still on schedule. Not late, not early. As you could see, they're continuing to work. They had a day or so that they had to do some cleanup and after the storm and find some cones that disappeared and realign some things. But they've been doing well over there, and they didn't have any issues related to the storm that I know of, other than some trees and things that had to be mitigated around their equipment under our side of the bridge, as well as Middletown, that they had some issues with that. So we ended up pretty good down on that side of town. Riverside Street was a big area, but in general, the majority of the power was pretty good there. It was the other old half of the town that took the brunt of the storm. The country is it's open, and if you want to take a tour, it's amazing how much brush is out there that still needs to be gathered. It's going to take 6 to 8 weeks for us to even put a dent in this. So if people want to take advantage of getting their brush to the landfill while they can, they should do that. Otherwise, some of that brush might be out in front of your house for quite a long time, but we certainly will get it. So just be patient.
Well, I think there's going to be an abundance of firewood this year, that's for sure.
People are going to be able to heat, that's for sure. And there'll be a lot of wood out there for the grabbing, because there's a lot of people that don't, and they're going to leave it alongside. So I'm sure our friends with the trucks and the wood stoves are going to have an opportunity to get a lot of wood this year right from their own town.
Absolutely. All right. Great, Bob. Thanks so much for your update. I appreciate that. And get some rest. I know you've been out many nights and over the weekends.
Yeah, we've all been out.
Yeah,
you know it as well. You've been doing alarms for us,
Yeah.
and Susan's been working night and day with the residents, and it's all a big team. That's all we can do.
That's right. You've done a great job, Bob.
Yeah,
and we love your leadership style. You're patient, and you get it done without any complaints.
Yeah, these are all these new tests.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, it's been something. So.
And Dave, I want to say you and Kevin keeping our website active and making sure that things are updated is important for our residents. And doing our podcasts. It's a great way to get people in touch.
Yeah, speaking of, when I announced this
I
podcast, I think I announced it as 18. This is actually episode 19.
Wow.
Can you believe it? That
I can.
It's been going along well.
Yeah.
So.
And I also wanted to update our listeners to the primary election that was held, Dave, just this past Tuesday, the 11th of August. I visited, I listened, I got feedback. It was A+. They did a fantastic job, all of our election poll workers, our registrars, our town clerk, and our residents.
Yes.
Everything went very smoothly, and we look forward to further preparations for the big day on Tuesday, November 3.
Right. And I think overall, from a standpoint of numbers, I think the mail-in ballots, outweigh the in-person ballot, like 6 or 7 to 1.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
you're right.
Which is huge. I mean,
Yes.
the box out at the town hall got a lot of use.
Yeah.
Ryan was out there emptying it 3 times a day.
Yeah,
as far as
I
that.
saw that.
But I think today is, from what I was talking with him this morning, today was the last day that he would be accepting the mail.
That's correct.
With the
Had to be postmarked on the 11th.
correct.
And received by Ryan by today.
Yes,
That's right, Thursday.
yes. So that's great. So all right, I think we're plugging along here. Everything is moving. Power's back on for the most part, and I think we still have a few outages left in town. If I'm understanding.
I want to say, I haven't checked the numbers this morning, but yesterday, believe we reached that big 0.
Oh, okay.
That everybody was back on. But it can happen, and sometimes people do lose their power. They must call it in to Eversource and make sure that they are on the list.
All righty.
Yeah, we really, I think, on that point, based on what's happening with our weather that we've been seeing for years now, I think those wonderful communities that are out in the country areas and that are not on city water and sewer, and they really need to start thinking about, buying and or looking into the purchase of a generator. It doesn't have to be a large one, but something that will give them light, that will give them water, and serve that most critical portion of their living. I think that's something that everybody needs to start thinking about because, this is going to continue to happen. The generators that are offered are much easier to use now. They're much more quiet. They're much more efficient. And at least those residents that don't have that ability to get water when they run out of power, and just the simple lights or keep their refrigerator and their food cold, I think they can do it, and I think they can do it economically related to prices and stuff. So I would urge those individuals that may have medical issues as well, most importantly, to really look and spend some time to see if they can do something to make their life a little easier during times that their power may be out more than 2 or 3 days.
Absolutely, good point, Bob. And I think most of all, and if they're thinking about installing those, is make sure that it is installed properly. I know
Correct.
Ray Sajak gave us some great information to put up on our website for proper generator safety. But again, hook up with Lincoln White in the building office to make sure that the proper disconnects are installed. Because that can be the danger out there if you're putting electricity back out on the grid when you're not supposed to. So
it is. It's better to do it right the first time. That way you'll never have a problem.
For sure. Great. Yeah. Good
Great
point.
suggestions, yeah.
Great, Bob. Okay. All right. I think that's we'll end it. Susan, you have anything else?
I'm all set, Dave. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So as episode 19 is in the tank here, so we speak. And again, our podcast can be viewed on the Channel 15 Comcast Public Access by next Tuesday. That they usually broadcast those at 9 in the morning and at 4 in the afternoon. And again, all of our podcasts are on the website. They're on YouTube. So wherever you get your podcast, we're out there. So again, on behalf of all of us here at the Town Tech Educational Partnership Podcast Studio, that does it for our episode number 19. And until next time, stay home, stay safe, and wash your hands. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Dave Kosminski. Please tune in every week for new and relevant conversations about the town of Portland. You can find us at portlandct.org or at YouTube/Town of Portland, and now wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please consider subscribing and sharing with friends. This podcast was produced by the Town Tech Educational Partnership Program, which is a partnership between Portland High School and the Portland Town Hall. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or organization, check out towntech.org/podcast to learn more.